Stress and anxiety also have motivation implications post-performance, after the game, after that event. We've talked about the direction and the intensity of our effort, okay? That's linked into motivation, as we discussed previously. We've all heard that expression, haven't we? They were trying too hard. He was trying too hard, she tried too hard. Trying really hard might make you more stressed. The intensity of your effort has increased, but the elevated stress levels may have had a negative effect on your performance. It can be a bit of a cycle there, okay? Having said that, let's look at some practical applications. Okay then, in a practical fashion, these are some of the reasons why it's good for us as coaches and people involved in sport and exercise science, or even sports development and coaching, to have some understanding of how people react to stress and anxiety and why it's important to have that. Well, it can help us to identify optimal arousal related emotions, the right level for the right person, for the right player. It'll also help us to recognize the interaction of personal and situational factors, okay? How what's going on around that person affects them. When I work with younger coaches, and I mentor quite a few younger coaches, one of the first bits of advice I give them is, you need to know what makes your players tick. And you need to know how certain players, particularly younger players, will react to certain situations. And that could be anything that's going on around them, okay? As I'm sure you know if you work with children. It helps us to recognize arousal and state anxiety signs. Again, I go back to what I just said. Good coaches know their players. They'll know the signs. You'll know how to pick up on this and how to respond accordingly. Also, of course, quite importantly, it allows us to tailor coaching strategies to individuals. It allows us to form individual action plans, okay? We may do some form of psychological profiling and identify that a certain player responds in a certain way to certain stimuli, and that can help us. Also, of course, it helps us to develop performance confidence. This might be step by step, okay? We get to know our players and we build on it over weeks. And don't forget, from a coach or a manager or even a sports leader, one word can make a difference done at the right time in the right way. Hopefully in a positive way. Okay, what I'd like to do now is consider some of the applications then of certain psychological skills which are designed to reduce the level of cognitive and somatic anxiety that performers can experience. Okay, this is really a brief outline now, and if you'd like to, I'd advise you to go away and read about this a little bit more on your own. Okay, I'll try and provide some information on Blackboard for you that'll signpost you in the right direction. So of course we can look at relaxation methods, and that'll be both physical and mental. Okay, and there are various methods out there. We could look at self-talk, or positive self-talk, thought stopping, cancelling out, using strategies to cancel out negative thoughts. Okay. We can also look at positive thought control, encouraging positive thoughts rather than cancelling out the negative ones. Okay. We could think of calming imagery. For example, one of the classic ones is when you're feeling stressed, breathe deeply, lie down on your back in a dark room, for example, and think about being relaxed on a beautiful beach somewhere, and it's a nice warm sunny day, and you start to listen to the sound of the waves and so on and feel the sand beneath your feet, that type of stuff. Okay. There's also stress management training, which helps people deal with stress. More specifically, we can look at stress inoculation training. Inoculation, just like when you get a jab from the doctor before you go on holidays. Inoculate you from certain kinds of diseases. Stress inoculation training, that tends to try and do the same thing in terms of stress and anxiety. It's a form of psychotherapy which was developed to help patients, and that's why it was designed in a clinical format, okay? But we can say players or athletes just as well prepare themselves in order to handle stressful events successfully, and crucially with a minimum level of personal upset, okay? So this actual form of psychotherapy actually came, as I said there, from a clinical background, okay? It wasn't actually designed originally for football players or runners or rugby players or netball players, but we've used it in sports psychology too. And that's true for quite a lot of these theories that we do use, okay? There's also attentional control training. This can help us increase our ability to focus. Switch on for the game. Also important one to remember, okay? We need to be able to switch off. I've just done quite a lengthy bit of research on mental toughness, okay, and what it means to certain people within a certain group. And this was one of the main areas that came out. The particular athletes I spoke to and coaches, they said that ability to switch on was really, really important in order to be mentally tough, okay? And that's something you need to look at yourself if you want to know about that particular area of sports psychology, okay? Also, quite crucially, they felt it was very, very important after the event to be able to switch off and relax for their own personal good. Okay then, so you might be wondering, he's talked a lot about anxiety, he's talked about what it is, how it's formed, how it's caused, how we can try and combat it. But this is sports science. Surely we can measure things. Well, we can. We can use different methods in order to measure anxiety. Again, these are methods which were designed and developed. Perhaps they've come from a non-sporting background, but they've certainly been adapted and used within sport and within the sporting context for a number of years now. You can see there's a list of them, okay? We've got the State Trait Anxiety Inventory. Inventory is just a word that refers really to a kind of questionnaire. You've also got the CSMI2, which is the Competitive State Anxiety Inventory. Quite a common one, okay? SAS, the Sport Anxiety Scale, and you've also got the Sport Competition Anxiety Test. These are quite common, okay? And you'll see them in any sports psychology textbook you look at, which has a chapter on stress and anxiety. Okay? These inventories are often used in an attempt to measure anxiety in sport, get an estimation of anxiety in sport. So, for example, the Competitive State Anxiety Inventory 2, it's the second version of it. This is one of the most frequently used, okay? And it's used when we assess competitive state anxiety in sports psychology research. What I'll do in the case of these, I'll provide more information regarding these inventories on Blackboard. You can see here, there's a list of essential reading as well. And again, please refer to Blackboard. From time to time, I will add additional reading that might be useful for you, okay? Thanks very much for this section.